what's up, everyone? This is 7 Octoberz again, and we have another episode here on Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue, Season 6. And today we have a dope guest who I met here locally in San Diego. Really dope hip-hop artist, and we'll kind of get into it in a second, but she goes by Moni 619 Designs. And how you doing, Moni?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, good. Thank you for being on. I know we kind of met briefly like a couple weeks ago now, or maybe like a month. Time goes by so fast, but I really, I really like loved your art, and it's like all like hip hop inspired, and I don't know. I just thought it was really dope when I saw it. I was like, I didn't really know about your work until like I came across. Shout out to like Luna Rose Photography who had the event, and I saw that she posted you first, and I was like, oh, this is really dope. And then obviously then I met you at the event, and I was like, oh wow, like it's really cool, like to put like like a face to like the art too,
Yeah.
and I kind of to get like the conversation started, like I wanted to ask you like what made you like fall in love with with hip hop in general.
I always grew up with it. I have an older sister, and ever since I could remember, I would always hang around with my big sister, and just hearing, her playing her CDs in her car, um, and all of the samples that I would hear from my sister's music, my parents would play. So it just felt like I was always surrounded with the sounds, like ever since I was born. And hip hop is such a big part of like South Bay culture. I grew up in the South Bay in San Diego. I was born in Chula Vista, and I've been staying here most of the time, most of my life. So it's kind of hard to it's hard to get away from. And it was just such a big inspiration when I was really trying to hone in on my subject matter when I was taking my art seriously. So it all came together.
That's pretty cool. And how long? Because I kind of like went down the rabbit hole, like trying to like research, like kind of a little bit about what you do and everything. And you're almost like a little bit under like a decade, or correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, like as far as like taking it seriously from what I saw, but like when did you start like art? Where did that come from, and like how did it morph into what it is like today?
Yeah, it is a little bit more of a decade. It's crazy. I have been drawing ever since I could pick up a pencil or a pen.
Yeah.
I started getting trained privately when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I got very traditional training. So um, every Saturday, I would go and take an art class for 3 hours in the morning. I think it was almost 4 hours. And it was half drawing and half painting. So for an hour and a half, we would just sketch something live. And then for the rest of the time, we would work on a bigger art piece, and we would work with oil painting. So I started with oils. I finished my first painting when I was like 9 or 10 years old, something. But yeah, very, very young. Um, and thankfully, my mom and both my parents just saw my interest in my talent at a very early age, so I was able to kind of hone in on it very young. And it continued on through high school. I took art in high school. I eventually got into college and then majored in visual arts. When I was about 18, I started to take commissions. I was still in college, but I was also doing art on the side. And, just practice. I was, doing things for free, and then I started to charge. And then my prices started to go up, go up. Officially, I got my business license in 2012, I believe. So it's 2024. So technically, I've been in business for 12 years. But I feel like it's been longer. Like,
Yeah.
I remember, I think I was in high school, and like family would ask me for drawings, So it's always been something I've done on the side now. This year specifically, and at the end of last year, I got back into doing more pop-ups and stuff. For a period of time, I was doing live art around North Park and in Barrio Logan for a good 2 years. And then I stopped. And then when I wanted to kind of get back in the scene, COVID happened. And then that kind of started my whole digital art, which people know me for now. And I I go back and forth between both. Like I think I've got a really good hand on doing art digitally. And then every now and then I do a piece on paper. There's pros and cons to both. I feel like one isn't easier and one isn't more difficult. So that's pretty much where I'm at now. So I'm just doing a little bit more pop-ups. I'm actually going to take a break for the next month or two because I'm working on a new collection of stuff. So that's the plan. And I don't know if my video is going to show up, but you can see like my cat. He wants to be in the podcast. His name's Paco. So you'll probably see him or you'll probably hear him in the background.
I was gonna say, like, was it like named after Tupac or something too? Because I saw that you put like Pac.
Yeah, that's my nickname. No, so the litter that he came from, his siblings were all named after a grandparent. And so my grandpa was named Francisco, so we call him Paco. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna call him Paco. And that's how it came about. It's a super random name for a cat, but he definitely fits the tier for Paco. He's pretty crazy.
That's really cool. That's cool that you just said that. It's like I've been having these little signs right now lately. Like, so I don't know if I didn't really tell you because I haven't really spoken to you like about before the podcast. But I'm dedicating this season to my abuelito. He passed away last year, like in October. So he was like a huge, like he was like a dad to me. So we were like, I was thinking, and I was like, when am I gonna drop like the season, right? And I'm like trying to give myself time because I'm pre-recording this, but this episode and the other ones I'm recording this week are kind of gonna drop in May. And
okay.
So when I was like trying to figure out, I was like, when should I drop it? And then I was like, oh, like what it would have been his birthday, which is May 17th. So I just was getting nervous because yesterday was like the first episode I filmed for the season, and I haven't really like done a podcast episode since like last year, like in August, because I took a hiatus, and because I always record everything, like I kind of stack up my episodes and then I drop them. And so I was kind of nervous, and I kind of just told the story too, because I just recorded another episode this morning. But it was crazy that you brought up your grandpa, because then yesterday I ordered something from like Amazon, right, like some groceries. And as I was getting something, I ordered like Cheerios, right? And so the Cheerios box, like it talks about, how it has like low cholesterol, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like, I guess there's this thing going on where like they're trying to like pretty much promote like heart health and stuff like that for families. And so you can customize it like limited edition, where you could say like mom, dad. And of all the things I could have said, it said abuelo and then grandpa. And I was like,
that's so cool. Yeah, that's so funny because the grandpa that he's named after was I was very, very close to, almost like a dad too. So yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah, so that's crazy that you just said that about the story now about your cat and like naming after your cat.
Yeah.
This whole season is like, I don't know, like my grandpa's like, your grandpa probably too or something, like, like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there has to be a little bit of spirit of my grandpa like in there. He's super playful, just like always, like even right now I passed by and he just like tapped me on the shoulder. I'm like, what do you want? What does that even mean? He's probably just saying hi or something. I don't know.
That's pretty cool. That's cool, that connection. Yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh wow, like I got another sign right there. But that's weird. Of all the things that could have been his name, why you named him.
I know. Yeah.
That's really cool. And actually, the reason I asked you about like his name first, because I saw that it said like Pac or something. So I was like, because I have a cockatiel. And his name is Tupac. Actually.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's funny. Like he head bobs too. Like sometimes, so like, oh, his name is fitting, and he's like a little diva too. So I was like, oh yeah, he that name is perfect for him.
Yeah, the temperament.
Yeah. And then sorry to like go back to like the art and everything.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I thought that was interesting too, what you said about like your parents, right? That like kind of they believed in you because you started like at such a young age. Like what were they like also creatives, or what made them? Because that's kind of like, at least for me, I've never really heard that where like the parents like start you off that, that like believing you that soon, and actually like get you lessons and stuff like that. That's pretty dope to hear.
Yeah. My parents, my dad works in construction. My mom worked in schools. She retired as a secretary. They're very creative. Like, I think all of my family is creative in different ways, not necessarily with art. What prompted my parents to get me into art lessons is literally ever since I could pick up a pencil or a pen, I would draw on the walls. So that was a big issue in my house growing up. My mom said that I would just make a mess. And I think like, when you're in school, you get, especially at an early age, you're developing all your motor skills and like drawing, always like is a big part of like your education, right? When you're really young. And I think my mom just noticed like any kind of drawing assignment, um, I was, a little bit more skilled, more than usual. And, I haven't actually really talked to her about it much when I was younger. I think it was just a natural thing to like push me into that. My parents saw that talent and that I liked it really early. And the private classes, I don't even know where my mom found out. Like this is it's not pre-internet, but like it's not like Instagram now where you see an ad, or somebody puts on Facebook. I think my mom must have heard it from a friend, or maybe she saw like a flyer somewhere. It was really close to my house. And I think I was one of the youngest people in my art class. I remember there were maybe some kids that were a little bit older than me, and then there were like teenagers. So I was there for about 3 years. I think I was like 11 or 12 when I asked to stop because I'm very grateful for the training that I got, but I think I was getting to a point where I wanted to just do my own thing. And when you're trained, the classical training is very strict, and they have you copy masters to teach you technique. And after like 3 or 4 paintings, I was like, I don't want to keep copying all these people, And I had gotten a good sense of like, my depth perception of drawing and like observing and getting the proportions right and stuff. And, I was getting older. I was like kind of getting into my teens, and I was already sketching my own thing in my journals. So I stopped, and then I went into college, and then it was like the same thing. Like they make you copy masters, and then they give you a chance to do your own thing. But it's just the way you learn. You have to be disciplined for a certain amount of time, and you learn all the tools so you could bend the rules later. So I'm super grateful for my parents. They're still really supportive. Like they'll come up to my events sometimes, or if I, have art, like they'll buy it. Like the calendar that you saw at my event, like they have it, and my mom has it in her kitchen. So they're always been, yeah, my family's like always been really supportive, and even my friends. I was in a program in school. It was a dual immersion program, and it was like a cohort of kids. So all of my really good friends I've also known since I was like 5 or 6. So I just have I'm very blessed to have a huge group of family and friends that literally have been there since day one, seen, like my friends seen my drawings when we were in school. And then like do the commissions, doing drawings for nothing, and then slowly being able to charge, and then doing events, doing the live shows, and then like all the successes that I've had, like I've been able to have a good support system behind me. So I'm super lucky where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's really dope. That's cool to hear, because I know that's like a rarity sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think I've known like people that long, like where like I pretty much like
Oh,
it's people that like
yeah.
as far as like on the creative side where like everybody's there. That's a cool thing. It's
It
like blessed, you know.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I don't know, it's like family. Like even certain people that I went to school with, like we would go to school together for years, like 6, 7 years, and I'll lose touch with them, and I see them, and it's almost like, oh my God, it's like family. Like
Yeah.
you just pick up where you left off. And I always see people that I went to elementary school with, like around my town. San Diego's so small, like it's its own little bubble. So I feel like I'll always like see them. But yeah, I had a very unique and very lucky like experience. I had a really good childhood, and I can't complain. I can't complain.
No, that's really dope. Yeah, like especially when you brought up about like the whole thing that there wasn't really social media back then, so your mom like really believed her, and like she did probably her research, or who knows how she found it, but that's pretty dope. Like that she.
Yeah, that's I could totally see her like trying to search for something, because um, my mom was always very like on it. Like I remember in kindergarten, I had trouble reading, I think, or seeing the screen, and she took me to the eye doctor, and I think I must have been 4 or 5, and um, they told me I had astigmatism. And when I was a lot older, and so I started wearing glasses at like 5. And at this time, they didn't make glasses for children. I remember I had like huge, huge glasses, and I had a little face. And I remember, I had gone to the same eye doctor for years, and then I ended up switching. And then my doctor was like, for your level of astigmatism, like you can see pretty well. And I told him how long I had been wearing glasses, and he's like, you're really lucky that your mom noticed so soon, because if you hadn't, like, I guess I would have had like my like a droopy eye or something. Like, he just told me that like I was really lucky that I had that support so soon, like for my eyes, or else I would have it would have been different. So yeah, like my mom's the best. She's always on it, even to this day. She's like asking me about things, and I'm already, I'm old, like I'm 33, so I'm still a baby.
Yeah. No, that's really dope. And I was gonna say too, because you talk about like your art bringing pretty much like having to copy like the masters and all that stuff, and kind of like that's how you kind of learn, right? Like learning from others and like just kind of imitating, right? How did you
Yeah.
develop like your style? Like, because I always find that intriguing, because I'm still like kind of in the beginning stages of, I feel like, for me, for my art, and I'm still trying to figure out like what my style is. So I like asking that to people, because I think it's really interesting how everybody develops their own over time.
Yeah, so to explain my style, just to give everybody like a summary, I draw in numbers. So because my art is hip hop inspired, I draw portraits of rappers with the area code of where they're from, and I basically layer the area codes and the numbers repeatedly over and over as like a shading to make up the entire portrait. It's very hard to explain in words. It's better, it's always easier if I show it, but that's the best way that I can explain it verbally. But I didn't develop that style until I was in college. And it's funny, I just talked to this professor recently, because I got my first solo show this month, of some like original type of work that I've done. And I messaged him because I told him I was very thankful for his class, because that's where I developed my style. So we had an assignment where we had to draw a tree. And he's like, I want you to go outside and draw a tree, but you can only draw it in squares. And I was like, what? Like, how are you going to do that? And he was like, figure it out. However you want to interpret that, you do. So of course I'm like drawing like square next to a square next to a square next to a square, like kind of like a grid. And I'm like, this isn't working. And I was struggling for like a good 20-25 minutes. And then I thought, oh, like maybe if I, put a square on top of a square and like layer it. And I don't know, just something like clicked like in that moment. And then the next assignment was like, okay, draw a portrait of yourself with words. Then that developed into a couple of years of me drawing rappers with a word. So I have a couple of pieces. That's how it started. Like I made like stencil pieces. I had like a final project for my bachelor's degree, where I had to kind of make like a review of like everything that I had made, and I had to make like a collection of a couple pieces, and I had made these really long like 10-foot scrolls with a bunch of words, because I had made kind of came up with like a small thesis that like hip hop was very meditative, and certain lyrics, if you repeat it over and over, would be kind of like come like a mantra. And so I that's where it kind of like started a little by little. And then once I graduated, I kept doing portraits with words. But then I hit a point where I was like, you know, I could only pick so many words that had so many letters, because I realized like if I choose a word with more than 5 letters, like it loses, to me, it lost the purpose, you know? Like it's cool if it's just like 4 letters and you look really close, and for me, like, and you see people like, oh, it's actually letters. But then it got to the point where it just literally started to jumble up. And, you know, I was like too focused on picking the right word. And then it wasn't about the portrait anymore. It was about like making sure it was right. And that's not the point of making art. So I through a friend, a really good friend, actually, a friend of a friend, got me a spot to do live art in North Park at Bluefoot. Bluefoot used to have these big art nights. And I had, it was funny, my first portrait that I did was Tupac there, and I had it all drawn out. And I remember driving there, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what word I'm going to choose. And I remember texting, I think I was like texting my sister, and I was listening to Dr. Dre. And I think it was, I don't know what song it was, but he mentioned like 213 in it. And I thought, oh, what about area codes? And I remember texting my sister, I'm like, do you think this is a good idea? And she's like, yeah, just try it. And so I went in like that day, like, okay, like, we'll see how this comes out. And so I just started with the numbers, and it's not my favorite portrait. Like it was literally the first one, and I had to do it live. So it was I put a lot of pressure on myself for it to come out good, you know? And after I was like, you know, this isn't the best, but there's something here. And the next, everybody loved it. I got a really good response. And then so the next time I did another one with area codes, and then it was just like I think it was once a month. And then I would pick up other spots where I would do live art. So I was doing like 3 spots a month. On top of that, I was sketching on my own time. And then it developed into what it is today, where I have like a collection of like 12 pieces that I put in a calendar. And so once the calendar's done, then I sell the prints and the stickers. And then I've also done a collection of sports themes art. You and I were talking about this at the event that we met at. I have a collection of Padres baseball players that I did in 2021. And so with that, I use the number that's on the back of their uniform, or their player number. So I've done a couple of like different stuff, but that's where the whole style was born, and it just took off. And I actually took like a break from the style for a couple years. I think like in 2016, between 2016 and 2018, I was doing a lot of live art shows, and I just hit a block, and I was like, this isn't fun for me anymore, and I want to try something different. So I did some more like traditional stuff, like traditional style drawings with no numbers. And then eventually I got a block on that, and I'm like, maybe I should just try, go back to the other style. And I started messing with digital art. I was incorporating like different elements into my portraits. So I think now I got a good handle, like, okay, whenever I feel stuck, maybe I just need to switch things up. So that's just how that started. So now everybody knows me as Moni, who does the numbers. That's what people always come and like, you're the one who does it with the numbers, right? And I'm like, yes, yeah, I'm that person.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't even catch that like the first time until like I went back to when I went to go follow you, and I saw your bio, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? And I'm like, let me go. I was like, and I have it here. Let me share it for those that are like there's like the calendar right here for people. But and then I looked into it, I was like, oh shit, like that's freaking dope. Like, and I'm into like, I just spoke with the last guest about like numerology, because I'm into all that stuff too.
Oh, cool.
But I don't know if I know like it's a little different thing, right? You're talking about like area codes and figuring out the style, but like, do you have anything like any knowledge about numerology like that, or like did that ever kind of come into play too when coming up with the style?
No, like the concept of numerology, I am a little bit familiar with it. I don't follow it too much, but I started to learn more about it in the past couple years, because I thinking like during the pandemic, I think I've always done like yoga, But during the pandemic and after, like I just needed like something, like exercise. So I started to do more yoga and then getting into like Reiki. They talk a lot about like numerology and stuff. So when I started with the area codes, no, not so much that. I think I just was looking for something that one like the words were getting to be too much, literally, like the digit, like the amount of letters, like it was too much. So the area codes were perfect because it's three numbers, and I really just wanted something that really like catered to whenever I make an art piece, I'm like, I make it for me. Like if I were out looking for something, like what would I think? Oh, this is so cool, and I would never be able to find it anywhere else. Like that's my favorite kind of art piece. I don't like, I don't really like to get anything that like I can get anywhere. Like if I have something, it's gonna be like, oh, where'd you get that? Because it just makes you feel so special, especially like
Yeah.
somebody who's really into hip hop. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we could be a little bit snobby. Like, sorry, like I know I am
Right.
snobby, right? Like you're just snobby about certain things. Like, and I think that's with everything, like any kind of thing that you like, you get a level of like snobbiness where you're just like, like I like this thing, because of this. And especially as you get older, you're like, you don't even know when I was, whatever years old, we didn't even have that
Yeah.
and whatnot. So when I make an art piece, it's not so much to fulfill a big need in the market. It's because I've never seen anything made that way. And with the numbers, like I would think for somebody who's really into hip hop and who has studied like the history of it, and a big part of hip hop is so much representing where you're from, like the area code thing, just like it was perfect to me. Like it went hand in hand with all of it. Like I don't just make a portrait of Snoop Dogg just because he's Snoop Dogg, and he's super famous. I make a portrait of Snoop Dogg because of, you know, all of his albums and his rhyme style and the way that he came about and the way that he was representing where he was from and his cadence and the lyrics. Like there's so much that goes into everybody who I pick. So I guess like with the numerology thing, like it's very particular about like what certain things mean. So I guess if I were to make a comparison, like yeah, like the numbers have a special meaning. Like especially if like I did a lot of Bay Area artists this year, and I have people coming from the Bay Area and they're like, that's so cool. Oh yeah, like I know, yeah, I'm from Vallejo. Like it's just it makes you feel good. Like that's like the best part of like my work is like when somebody really has that like deep connection to it.
Yeah, because it is, yeah, like you said, it's unique, and then also like it also has like I said, a connection with the people, because like if I saw, because I'm obviously from San Diego, so like if I see something with a 619, and then
Yeah.
like even the hip hop added to it, like of course it's like it even caters to the like you said, like the buyer too, not just like, because
Mm-hmm.
I like how you said that you kind of put yourself in the perspective, like yourself too, but also you kind of putting yourself in the perspective of like the consumer, right, or like the person that's gonna support your art. And
Yeah.
that's really smart, because yeah, like I'm the same way too. Like I love buying stuff, like I said, that it's like I might have a one of one that nobody's gonna have, or it's like a unique piece, like you said, that it's gonna be like a rare find and you won't see
Yeah.
it anywhere else, right? And
Yeah, for
so yeah,
sure.
yeah, that's really cool. That's why like your art stuck out to me, and it was even before that I knew about the numbers thing. 'Cause I found that out even before after that, actually. So I was like, okay, I kind of felt dumb at first. I was like, oh, I didn't even catch that. Like,
No, it's
yeah,
so
that's
it's
so
so
smart.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so hard. Like, um, especially the pieces that I made this year, and even now, I'm kind of not that I'm over it, but it was just something that I noticed every time I make a collection. I am very objective. Like I'm lucky that I went to UCSD for my undergrad, and I had a lot of professors who were really focused on like before you make anything, ask yourself like why are you bringing this into the world basically, and like why should people care? Why is it important?
yeah,
And so I think about that before and I think about it after. And one thing that stuck out to me about this particular collection that's on that calendar is like I make it digital. So I guess the pro and the con of doing things digital is that you can zoom in, but you can zoom in like 400% so I could be working on something for 40 minutes and I zoom out and it's like this, it's like the size of a penny, you know.
Yeah.
And my style is very detailed, and I'm a perfectionist, and like I like really clean, clear detail in my art personally, like my style. So with these drawings, it's really hard to see that they're numbers. You have to look up close. And you know, that's cool that like it for me, I guess it's a I could see that as like a pro to the collection that I made now, because people really have to look at it. And it's also very easy to just say like, "Oh, it's a really good drawing." And then go about it. You know, go about your day. And now in person I can actually tell people like, "Oh, if you look up close, it's the area code." And they're like, "What? No, it's not numbers." And you have to look up really, really, really close. And so I think for me, like the drawings that I used to make before had a little bit more of a looser style. And so I've just like evolved, you know, year after year. And I think now when I make the next, whatever I make next, I'm going to keep that in mind. Like maybe I should just loosen it up a little bit more just so that people can actually see. I mean, everybody that follows me knows to look closer into the detail of the drawing. But I'm getting a lot of like new people that don't know my stuff, and it is easy to just complete. And I don't take it personal. It's not like people are doing it on purpose. And like we see so much every day, and we're so used to just scrolling and like yeah, and I'm not the first person to ever make a portrait of Tupac, and I'm not going to be the last. I'm not the first person to ever make a portrait of Snoop Dogg or Nipsey Hussle. And so it's just a matter of of me being lucky enough to have the time and the attention of people to explain to them like what the art piece is and like how I made it. So don't feel bad. I don't like it's totally okay. It's awesome that you want to me. I'm like, oh wow, like even before you knew that you wanted me on your podcast, like that's so cool. Like it's even better now.
Yeah, and I thought it's really dope though, because what you just said about like maybe the like some people that might not know like anything of your previous art, or like be familiar with your art pieces. Like you kind of give, it's kind of like a double turn, right? Like you make these people like actually like look into, because that's what art is too, right? Like just kind of looking at it, and you might have missed it the first time, and then you
Yeah.
see it again, and it tells kind of like a story, right? So because it kind of like right now when you were talking about that, it kind of reminded me of like this surrealist like Mexican painter that I really like. It's he goes by Octavio Ocampo. I don't know if
Hmm.
you're familiar with his stuff, but if not, you can Google it. It's pretty dope, because his like it's like a picture within a picture type of thing, or like a painting within a painting. So it's like, let's say it's like two people, like two skeletons, but then it forms like a face. And
Oh,
so
I know who you're talking about.
yes. And
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that type of stuff, like that type of art. I don't know, like at least for me, because I'm more of like one of those people that like likes looking to stuff like deeper. So when I saw your thing, your bio, and then I was like, oh shit, like this even, it made it even doper too, because like you said, anybody can draw like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, not saying like anybody, because like I know I can, but but like you know, like anybody can kind of like copy the same portrait, right? But
Yeah.
the fact that you made it your own style with like the numbers part, like that adds another like uniqueness to it, right? So I think that's really dope.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and I was blown away. I was like, oh wow. But anyways, and that way, you know, I really like did love your art before I knew that, and I wanted to podcast. I was like, but then even that, I was like, oh, that makes it even cooler, because when I was gonna have you in the podcast, I was like, oh, I definitely want to talk about that in the episode.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? You know, so it's cool to
Yeah.
give like some context to those like that might not be familiar with the work that are gonna tune into the episode.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then you know, like back to like you know, like hip hop obviously plays a big role in your art currently, and then I know you're working on another project now with baseball, but with hip hop, you know, being what it is, like you just talked about like why you love it, and why it kind of like it's something that's been part of your life almost your whole life. For you, like what is something that like hip hop has taught you? Like for me, it's like I know it's like a genre that's like really empowering. At least for me, like it gave me like more like better self esteem and stuff like that. To kind of give an example. So for you, like what's something that hip hop has taught you?
Hmm. I think I think for me, I grew up I grew up in the 90s when hip hop was very divided, I feel like. And it was also like the golden era of hip hop.
Yeah.
And as I got older through my teens, I think there was a consensus that there was a little bit of a decline in the quality of the lyrics. I think it had always been there, but it was just so drastic with music videos and just what was considered hip hop. Like that was, I remember hearing a lot about that. My sister was very much into underground hip hop when I was like, I want to say like 11, 12. So as an 11, 12-year old, I'm hearing things on the radio, but then when I go, with my sister, we're listening to Atmosphere, we're listening to Jedi Mind Tricks, we're listening to Lyricist Lounge, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Black Star, Jared the Damager, like all of these artists that weren't mainstream. And, like we would hear things on the radio and it was cool. But then I would also like the things that my sister would hear. So I think for me, like as I got older, I went through my phase of like, oh, I only like underground hip hop and because it's the best and that's it and it's done.
Yeah.
And then as I got older and I would, go out or like I'd go to dances, I'm like, okay, well, I can't necessarily like dance to, Respiration by Black Star, like it's
Yeah.
time and place. So I think like what hip hop's taught me is like maybe I think having like discernment, um, like I was even thinking I always get asked like, oh, who do you think the best rapper is? And I'm like, I don't know. Like for me, it automatically like Big Daddy Kane and Rakim come to my mind. And nobody really like you don't hear about them a lot anymore. But for me, like the way that they rap, what they rapped about, the arrangement of how they use their words and the fact that they can freestyle, like for me, like there's no comparison. And now it's like, can you really judge somebody of how they're freestyling? Because you don't really hear it. It's not like a requirement. Before it was like you had to really prove yourself. Now you don't have to because if you have a Spotify account and you have recording equipment, you could put your stuff out there. And I don't want to be like a pessimist, but the bar is like low now. Like there's no incentive like how there used to be to have to put out a collection of work that all went together and that made sense. I hear so much stuff now, which is a bummer that like I'll hear a 24 track album and I'm like, why? Like you could have cut it in half and it would have been great. Or you could have made it 8 tracks and it would have been great. Like nobody makes 8 track albums anymore. They're all like 24 tracks or 25 tracks and they all sound the same. Like it's the same production. It's the same beat. It's the same da, 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 da. Like I feel like I'm listening to a run on like song that goes on for like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
And I think that way because of how I was exposed when I was younger. And I really like when I listen to hip hop, I really listen to the lyrics and I'm really picky and of like that did that make sense? Like why did he rhyme the same word 6 times. You know, some rappers can do it and it's great, and then some others can't, and you're like, what happened? What happened? You know? So I think it's really taught me like to be very particular about how I consume my music, and to really listen to what I'm listening to, not just in music, but in everything, like just questioning, like, why? And it's funny because my art training was very focused on that. You know, UCSD isn't an art school, it's a science and engineering school. So it's all very cerebral, which was really weird being in an art program that, you know, you think art like, I always talk about this with a particular friend of mine. Like, there's this like fantasy, like idea of an artist that, like, oh, you know, like in the middle of the night, I just wake up and I have this idea and I'm inspired and like I'm gonna draw something out of my mind. Like, it doesn't happen like that. Like, for me, no. Like, I wake up in the middle of the night because I forgot, you know, to turn my heater off. Like, but I'm not like, oh, I need to do this like right now, you know? So just you know, I put a lot of thought, and it's work. It's not just fun. If you take any art that you take seriously, it is work. I don't really believe in the, you know, if you love your job, it's not a job. No, it's always going to be a job. There are always going to be things that are difficult, and you have to be really careful about what you put out, because it's a representation of yourself. And I feel like the artists that I respect, I hear that in their music. Like, and I see it because they're not coming out with an album every month or every couple months, and they're not coming out with a song, you know? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think people like to just put things out to experiment. But for me, like as a consumer, like I'm really picky, like about, especially with hip hop. Like, I have a very particular opinion about like what I think is good and what I don't like. And
Yeah.
if I don't like it, I don't like it. You know, I think there's like a common lyric. It's like, if I don't like it, I don't like it. It don't mean that I'm hating. Like, it's just not. It's not. But
Yeah.
I come from an area where you really had to like prove yourself to be able to call yourself like a true hip hop artist. So I think that's what it's taught me at my age for what I grew up in. Because I can't compare myself to people who start listening to hip hop now. It's a
Yeah.
completely different spirit. Like, I follow Ninth Wonder on Instagram, and right? Like, did you see his video that he came out with?
The sampling, was it the one about
Yes.
sampling, like
Yeah, I was
the
about.
kids, right? I kind of like
Yeah.
his take on it too, because it kind of gave me context. Because as you were talking, I was thinking about what he said, because I just watched it a couple of days ago too. And I was
Yeah.
like, now it kind of gave me a little bit of more empathetic feel for the younger generation. Because
Yeah.
as I gotten older, I never would have thought I would have been those people. Because I remember my parents being like, "Oh, you're listening to that," or like they didn't really care what I listened to, but just like, you know, like the club songs. Because I like same thing like you said. Like, I love the club songs, but I also love lyricism. So I a
Yeah.
little bit of both worlds. But I feel like even our party music does not compare to like you can understand what they were trying to say, like the 50 Cents, in the club, like all this stuff. Like nowadays, it's like, what the fuck are you even saying? But so it doesn't even compare. But I loved what Ninth Wonder did say though about like how the fact that you expect these kids to go, like we were living in real time in the era, like
Yeah.
for us at least, like the 90s, and then there's other people like in the 80s and the 70s, but like we kind of saw all that and we didn't have to like learn it. Like, imagine the people that are like, when he says about the kids that are born in the 2000s or like 2010s, and I was like, oh shit, like that is true. Like, we expect them to try, like, yeah, they have the internet, but like what decade do they start with? Like, because there's so many artists now by the time they're born. So I was like, I empathize with that part. But like for me, as being like a hip hop head, kind of like yourself, like I feel like if you're gonna be part of this culture, you should educate yourself. At least if you're gonna be doing music that's like hip hop, because I always find
Yeah.
it like kind of sad when they interview like newer artists and like they have no clue of like the pioneers and who paved the way to like for you to be there. So to me, that's disrespectful. I think maybe the younger kids that are just like listening to music, whatever. But like, if you're a producer, if you're like an artist, if you're in the hip hop space, I think you should. The least you can do is go and like research.
Yeah, like uh, I think now certain certain rappers don't realize that their style was already done 20 years ago. And you'll hear rappers like really like cemented rappers in hip hop. And you'll see like I see it all the time in videos like on Instagram, like they'll see each other and they're like, dude, like I bit your style. Like I don't know who it was talking to Rakim, and he's like, this song, like the way that I rapped, I copied your style from Paid in Full. And so somebody must have copied him, and it's just like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And it is kind of frustrating when like these younger rappers get questioned and they're like, I don't know who so and so is, and I'm like, it's all over your rap style. Like you're copying the cadence and the arrangement of words, like, and the turn of phrase. Like it's I can name two other rappers who did it before you. But it is difficult. Like it's 2024. Like there's nobody like Tribe Called Quest. Like I can't think of anybody who does rap like that. And then like when you see a group like Outkast come out, like if they were to come out now, I don't think people would it would have as an impact, because everybody is like, there are already rappers who are kind of want to be out there, and it's like Outkast paved the way for them, like, and they got hated on when they did it, and then after 5 years it was cool, because imagine if they didn't know how to rap, like they would be a laughing stock. But because that they were actually good, and then they just kept going, they didn't care. Like to me, like Outkast, I love, I don't know, it's really hard. It's like between Wu-Tang and like Outkast, to me, are like the best rap groups of all time, because they paved the way for people to be different. Like, you think rappers were like super into like kung fu and were using like samples? Like that was considered nerdy, And then they made it cool, and then it was okay. And then for Outkast to like talk about aliens and like extraterrestrial, like added like otherworldly stuff, like it was weird. But then after a while, it's like, oh, like now it's okay. Like I don't think people realize like certain groups really took the bullet during a time when you had to look a certain way, and there was an idea of how to be a male rapper. Like female rapper is a whole other saga that we could talk about, like a whole other, a whole other podcast, like so many like double standards. But for a male rapper, like in the early 90s, there was like a certain kind of look. And you see, like, you grew up like towards 1995, 96, like it started to get challenged a lot. And now it's like, you can't, and not that they were right, but like it has evolved so much. But I feel like now with the social media and like just as fast as technology goes, that's how fast hip hop is evolving, because it's so like rooted in getting samples and depending on like what new technology is out, because then it gives you an advantage of how you can make music different. So it's just like for me personally, I feel like it moves so fast that like I try really hard to listen to new music now, and I like half of it, and then the other half I'm like, I just can't relate. And I try not to like hate on it too much, but then there are some songs where I'm like, it just sounds like noises, like it just sounds like straight up like noises, and I don't know. Yeah,
I just think it's beautiful that hip hop kept going, because they kept saying it was going to be a phase, which I knew that was not going to happen. It's like, and now it's like the number one consumed genre.
Yeah, that's funny. They think it's a phase. Yeah, okay.
Right? It's like 50 years later, here we are.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and then kind of like you brought up, like, like the whole female thing, right? Like I won't go too much into that, because I know that would be like a whole another episode. But like another artist like right now that I'm looking forward to, and I think we talked about it when I met you, was like Rhapsody's like
oh, finally. Yeah, poor thing. She's
But
probably like, oh, I gotta put this out soon.
I know, right? Because everybody was just like, "Where the fuck are you gonna drop?" And she finally gave me a release date. Um,
Yeah.
and actually, ironically, I didn't realize it. Like now, I'm like such a dumbass too, because I was like, she's dropping it on the same day, like my grandpa's birthday, the 17th. I forgot. That's again another sign. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited. And then you said about like the whole thing about like the greatest rappers and your favorite rappers, and she has a line in Asteroids, right, where she says like, if I had a dick, I would be in the greatest debate. And I feel like, and I agree with her, because I feel like honestly she's one of the best. She's like top 5 for me right now. Because I feel like I hate when people try to be like top 5 MCs and then top 5 female MCs. Like I feel like there shouldn't be that. Like why does it matter if you're a guy or a girl? Like
Yeah.
I think I'll rap anybody like right now. And I don't know if you saw her freestyle that just
I did see her freestyle this morning. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like she's on a mission right now.
yeah. So I'm excited for her album, because I feel like it's really gonna be even more introspective than her last project.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like I know that we can go on a whole off tangent, but like as far as like the female MC versus like the MCs, like what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's funny because I think you and I were talking about this when we met, that I I get questioned all the time about my knowledge of hip hop. Like, first of all, people come up to my table and they're like, "Oh, like who's the artist?" And I'm like, "It's me." "Oh, you? You do this? You know hip hop? You know a lot." Like it's a huge like surprise, you know? And yeah, I feel that line. Like if I were a man, I always think about that, like, and I hate to think that way. Because I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, or if I were a man, like it would be different.
Okay, yeah.
I but
But
and and I just happen to like my art content happens to focus on things that are mostly male dominated. So I told you this. I have to try 3 times as hard. I have to know 3 times as much as my male counterparts. I have to do research on my own time. I have to study more. I have to know everything to be taken seriously. And that's apart from, I'm not very tall. I'm small. I don't dress my age. I dress like younger. I'm like kind of, like goofy when I meet people. Like when I'm at an event, like I'm not like super serious. So I think people can't even believe that I've been doing this for like 10, 12 years. Like there's just so many things that I feel like sometimes that are working against me. And I can relate to a female rapper who is in a very male dominated industry where they have to try twice as hard, 3 times as hard. They have to be better. And then they're better and they're at the same level, like when they're compared. Or you have to have like a gimmick or you have to show off a little bit more to get the attention. Like you have to have something extra. It can't just be you. Like you have to have something. And like I feel like the female rappers like that have had to break that mold, like Lauryn Hill and Rhapsody, and like Missy Elliott, of course, had her thing, but Missy Elliott is like a whole on a whole different planet from I don't know where. Like she, like, to me, I love Lauryn Hill, but me personally, like my style of music that I listen to, Missy Elliott to me is like the best. She can out rap any man, and just the things that she thinks about, like the way that she writes her lyrics and the things that she says, you're like, how, like you just said that, she just has so much more, like play on words, but she just has so much more balls than a lot of her male counterparts. So,
Yeah.
and I hate to make it like male female, like you're right, like it doesn't matter. I just think I wonder, like, all of the female rappers that we've missed because of lack of opportunity that was given to them, you know? Um, in that female rappers that get overlooked because they want to present themselves a certain way, like Lil Kim. Like, say what you want about her album covers or like what she wore and what she didn't wear. She's a good rapper. Like she was on par with all her male counterparts, and she was, because she was rapping with a bunch of men. Same thing with Lauryn Hill. Same thing with Queen Latifah when she came out too. Like, you really have to like hold your own, and I just think like, you know, it's the plight of being a woman. Like, you always have to like you have to do all the things and do it well, do it perfect, like just to be considered equal to in whatever industry you're in. So I could definitely like relate, you know. And I'm 33 now, so I'm pretty confident in my talent and my ability and all my experience. Starting, you know, 18, 20, and I don't see a lot of women in my field, like that was hard. And I mean, I made mistakes, and like I think of things and I'm like cringy, you know? And it's just a learning experience, but it's just so hard. Like, there wasn't any females to talk to. Like, and I'm so grateful that I got my education because there were a lot of female artists that I was able to talk to. Nobody did anything like I did, and they didn't necessarily like listen to hip hop, but they were just such good role models. And I think that was a hard thing too. Like, for every 5 male rappers, you get one female. Back then, like for every 10, 20 rappers, male rappers, you get one female rapper. Like, who do you talk to? Who do you like, you know, all the male rappers were all cool and they're all friends, you know, they could talk to each other. They probably took each other on tour. Like, they got all of the advantage and the you know, the bonuses of like knowing so and so. For a female, it's like you had to prove yourself, and then you had to prove yourself 3 times over. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And now I think I don't know if it's easier. Like, I think you I don't know, like now I see female rappers and like you have to have a certain look and you have to rap about certain things. Like, sometimes I like I said, I really try to diversify like my taste, and I'll hear something and I'm like, oh God, this is too, like, I don't want to listen to this like right now. And there, I could hear it. Like, they're good. Like, they can rap. And I've even seen some female rappers freestyle that, like, I'm like, you're freestyling? And then I hear a song and there's just like, yeah, there's not a lot of like content, like worthy lyrics. And I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want to like talk shit, you know. I really try to do my best to like be very equal to the plane. But personally, I'm very like, I'm a pretty reserved, private person. Like, I don't put things out on display for everybody to see, like, and physically, like, I cover up a lot, like. And so to see somebody like Rhapsody, like, I can relate to that. And to see somebody like Missy, like, that did her own thing, like, I could relate to that. Like, even Little Kim, like, now I see her and I'm like, she really, like, just because she was in a bikini, she was still wearing wigs and like furs, and like she was doing things different, you know? And so I just think that for me, when I listen to like, it goes back to like what you asked, like what hip hop taught me. Like, it's, I'm very particular about who I listen to and who I give my time to and energy to, not just even in my personal life, but just like my listening time. Like, if I'm going to listen to your album, it's going to be like, I'm really going to pay attention to it. So I'm really grateful for like rappers like that. And another rapper I really like, well, there are a couple, like Little Sims. I don't know if you know her.
Yes, yeah.
But like her last album, How to Be an Introvert, like that album from front to back, like, was so good. And all of like everything that she talked about on that album was so great. and she's such a good rapper. Like, and her freestyle is crazy. And another rapper that was on Rhapsody's last album, Lickily 47. Like, I'm so bummed that she doesn't she doesn't make music anymore. And I hear her rap, and I'm like, dude, where is this? Like, where are you? Come back! Like, I want to hear more of you. And it's just it's so hard, and it's so hard now too, because it's like if somebody blows up, that's all you hear. You don't like you're not gonna hear. Thankfully, they're like it's a double-edged sword. Like thankfully, because of social media, we're able to hear Rhapsody, and but if it were like back in the day, like and you hear it on the radio, Megan Thee Stallion, Nicki Minaj, and Doja Cat, and I like all three of them. And sometimes I hear their stuff and I'm like, like I wish I could like remember when you did that freestyle like back at like like a couple of months ago. Like, can I hear something like that? Like, I don't want to hear WAP all the time, like it cool, like I'll listen to it and I'm like, it's kind of catchy. But at the same time, for me, like I just when I listen to mainstream people like that and I hear something on their album, and like the it's more focused on the lyricism, I'm like, oh, like there's something still there. Like it's not all just the mainstream song that I hear on the radio. And that's like, like when Eminem was first coming out and MTV was so big and they were always doing like making the like behind the video or like whatever, making the video, like he was so honest. Like I remember, I don't know what video it was for. I think it was Without Me, and it's the one where like he's with Dr. Dre and they're like superheroes. And I remember, I have this like memory in my mind, and he looks at the camera and he's like, we got to make the song like to get the album sold, and like he was admitting like I got to make a mainstream song, and now everything's a mainstream. Like, I feel like everything's a mainstream song. Like, you made the mainstream song to make the music that you wanted to make. Now it's like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so I think with female artists, like rappers that I hear now, I hear a lot of like that mainstream, like poppy kind of thing. But maybe they have to because like things don't change. Like, still, I think, like you said, like, why are there best MCs and female MCs? Why can't it just be one? And like Lil Wayne will say that like Missy Elliott is probably the best rapper alive. Like he always is giving her props and quotes her. And Rhapsody's always been mentioned. Like Lauryn Hill is like a no-brainer. So I don't know. It's like a whole other thing, but I could definitely relate to being like a brown female artist that is in a male dominated industry in my content. Like, I'm not gonna say that I'm the only female artist because there's a lot of female artists in San Diego and I have so much respect for them. In my particular case, I attract a lot of male people who identify as male audience, and I see it in my Instagram. Like, you get the stats and it's like I think between 55 to 60% of people that see my content identify as male. So it's hard. It's been hard. Now that I'm older, like I have more answers to the questions that I get. But like I always had to have that, like I always had to be ready. And now I'm good. Like I've already answered all the questions, I don't feel the need to have to prove myself anymore. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And like, it's always nice to see like it's always nice to see people doing what they love, but more so like to have another like brown female, like for real, like making a space for themselves. No questions asked. Like, I think we have a lot to relate on. It's not easy, but you have to do it, because then somebody else will see it and they'll say like, oh, she looks like me, she sounds like me, oh, like we like all the same things. Like, I just hope like it's a way to pay it forward. So thank you like for this, for real. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Yeah. for sure. And then if you need any tips on like getting on the camera, let me know, because I was the same way. I was like the same way. And the same thing you said, I said to myself too. Oh, I don't want to do these videos. I'm gonna be
It's
so
so
corny.
like,
But
yeah, I
you
know.
make it yourself, because me too. I made my own. I was like, I always hated the, like the hey guys, like the voice that you do.
I know. I don't know why. Like I'm just like, hey, like I have a top hat or something. Like,
Yeah, I feel you on that. That was me too. Because I was kind of like the her. Because when I started Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue, I just had like I didn't post anything about myself either. And of course, the number one assumption was that I was a dude. Of course.
Yep. Same. Somebody was like, "What's up, bro?" And I'm like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" And he's like, "I didn't know you were a girl." I'm like, "What? Like, who cares? What's up, dude?" Like,
Yeah, it was just so funny to me, because people just kept saying that until like I started showing my face. And I remember like remember when like she didn't show her face at all either, like the R&B singer. And then she was, because I like what she said. She was like, it's all about just like what I'm doing, my art. It shouldn't matter who I am. And that what stuck with me, because I could relate to that. But then I was like, okay, it's time to show who I am.
You're all and
Yeah, right. And
you're all and her starting to take her sunglasses off and making like lens crafter commercials. So if she could do it, we could do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll end it with that. But thank you so much again for being on. I appreciate you.